Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Team Fun. We are doing something, a break from the norm, a little bit more interesting here. I am here with Ryan Mather and Caroline Brewer, the two people behind the upcoming Kickstarter game, Fliptales. Guys, thank you so much for allowing me to, Ryan, invade your home, set up all my junk, and just get right on into it.
Welcome.
Thanks for coming.
No, absolutely. So, let's start at the very beginning. What is Fliptales?
So Fliptales is a really lightweight tabletop game for collaborative storytelling, similar to Dungeons and Dragons or a lot of other similar games, but kind of designed from a place of the game I wish I always had.
Cool. So, I mean, we'll get into like the full world and everything you've created here, but where did the idea and the impetus to build a game come from?
Yeah. So I'm a designer because I'm interested in human behavior, and I'm interested in games because I think that that's where people are the most creative and the most interesting. There's this Stuart Brown quote I really like where he says, "The opposite of play isn't work. The opposite of play is depression." Okay. And so I think it makes sense that in a state that's the opposite of depression, that's when you'd be the most creative and unpredictable. And so I think people are the most engaged, and I'm surprised the most often when I create games. So I'm interested in games generally.
Right.
And then why this game? I remember when I was a kid, I would hide in my parents' bedroom to watch Powerpuff Girls because I thought that my brother would come in and he would make fun of me for it. My brother's a totally great guy. Jason, you're great.
Put him on blast. All right, let's go.
It's just, it's a cultural phenomenon. And then I remember when Pokemon came out, I would always pick the girl character just to see how does it feel to play as a girl. And then in high school when I learned how to play Dungeons and Dragons, shout out Matt Klinkle, who was my first dungeon master. I always played female characters. It was always a female tiefling ranger. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that role-playing was a really meaningful experience to me to just sort of play out my identity and try out different personalities. Like, I, always try to be a good person in my day-to-day, but what's it feel like to play an evil character? Like, maybe then I'll understand why bullies are mean to me because I've tried it on for size, like a pair of shoes or something. And so I really wanted to give people an experience where they can have that too. And I just want to share it with more people. So I wanted to design a game that was as easy to start as possible. One of my goals for this game is that you can play it during a lunch break at work. And another goal of mine is that some people who've never played a role-playing game before can get started in about 15 minutes. And so those are two goals that I set. And yeah, that's why.
Awesome. And Caroline, how'd you get involved with all this?
Yeah, so Ryan and I went to RISD together. He was the year above me. And during the kind of end of my senior year, Ryan came to me with this game that he had been building for many years and was like, I don't know, your work's kind of weird, I like the way you draw, will you illustrate it for me? And I was super down because I loved D&D in high school. I love games in general. And I hadn't really been able to get back and play it in my college years just because you lose access to your DM and to that.
Do you know where your DM is?
Do you know where your DM is?
It's 8 o'clock, do you know?
Yeah, and that that friend group that sat around in their dank basement and drank soda and played D&D into the late hours of the night. That was my curfew, up into my curfew. So yeah, I have such lovely fond memories of playing RPGs, and I was so excited to be able to have this opportunity to play and design one that really champions accessibility and improvisation and this real community. So it was a cool opportunity. Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's take a look at the box. We have it right here, And why don't you guys walk us through how to get started? The whole the game, the rules, the whole thing.
So this is the special Team Fun limited edition prototype.
Smack our logo on there in post to make it look really nice.
Yeah. This just says this is a prototype so that no one can get
so I don't get confused.
I'm completely absolved of all responsibility. So this is the first thing you see when you open it. It says start here. And this is the instruction booklet. And so first thing it says how to play. So what is the goal? In Fliptales, you and your friends pretend to be different characters in a story. You win when you get to the end of the story. Then how do you play? In each story, one person is the referee. In each scene of the story, the referee reads out a prompt, and then the rest of players freestyle in response.
That's nice. You say in a sentence or two what D&D does in the entire player's handbook.
Great.
Then it says, during freestyle, what's freestyle? During freestyle, players go in a circle and act out their responses to the prompt. Then they flip their coins. If their result has a lot of heads, their character succeeds in flying colors. If it comes up tails, epic fail. And then there's, see page 10 for examples. How do you lose? If your character loses all their coins, you die. There's a lot of danger in the world of Fliptales, so watch out.
Great. So we can still make people cry during a game session, which as a DM that's important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so do you want to go through the setup part too?
Well, yeah, let's give us kind of the abridged version as far as
Sure.
how the main gameplay mechanic works.
Sure. So basically, each player gets one creature card and one ability card. So these are pretty similar to people who've played RPGs before. It's very similar to how Dungeons and Dragons and other RPGs work. Some noted differences are that the species in this game are a lot more differentiated. So, for example, you can play as a rock or a tree or a bird. They're not all humanoid.
Okay.
And then the abilities, like I told you, I was always a tiefling female ranger, and so I sought out that in this game I want everyone to have at least 2 abilities that they like to play.
Okay.
And so there's 16 different ones to choose from. And a lot of people actually, when they play, they just pick randomly.
Interesting.
I noticed all my friends in California choose randomly,
They just want
and
to
all
go
my
for
friends in New York look at all of them before they decide. I don't know.
What does that mean?
Some sort of coastal difference.
Having lived in both states, it makes a lot of sense. I completely understand that.
And then so the abilities each have 3 different special abilities that you can do, and you gain access to those over the course of one session.
Right.
So you start out only being, if you're a fungus lord, you start out only having mushroom bloom, and then in level 2 you get mushroom minion, and level 3 you get mind shroom,
Ooh.
which allows you to control other players.
That is great. So you got the color coins here, right? Let's talk about the coins a bit. So that's the main. Instead, there's no dice rolling.
No.
It's all with the coins itself, right? So how's that work in the game?
Hold these for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
So basically, through observing a lot of playtesting, I realized that the whole character creation experience boils down to basically taking 2 things, 2 character traits, and adding them together to a 3rd thing. And so I figured, why, instead of making people write down numbers and do addition, why don't I just tell you to grab a certain number of coins for each one, and then the addition is just that they're in your hand now.
Okay.
You never have to write it down because
You just have the coins.
yeah, you just have them. So each coin represents a trait. Originally there were 8. Then everyone was like, "This is too complicated." And I was like, "Come on, it's just 8. In comparison to D&D, that's tiny."
Yeah.
And they were like, "I don't know what D&D is," and I was like, "Fine." So I whittled it down to 4, and then people were like, "Yeah, no, it's still confusing. I don't get the difference between these 2." And I was like, "Seriously, 4? If you had any idea how much time it makes to create a character in D&D, you would you'd be begging for forgiveness."
Roll 4 dice,
Yeah.
8 times, remove the lowest one, add them all up. No.
But like I said, I took a long break in between revisions, so eventually I whittled it down to 3. And so yeah, there's these 3 colors. Red is strength, orange is magic, and then yellow is smarts.
Right. So if I am, let's say, because we got these on the back here, a geoid fungus lord, I'm getting a total of 5 strength, 7 magic, I can't count, and 2 smarts.
Yep.
Is that right? Gotcha. Okay.
And so whenever you do something that uses up your strength, for example, you'll flip all 5 of those coins.
Great. Cool. And then if it's circle up is a success, X up is a failure, and it's awesome. It sounds super easy. Why coins and not dice?
So the coins instead of dice is because I found that the coins were really simple, just like it's either on or it's off.
Right.
And that allowed me to make, also just in terms of production, they're going to be very cheap to produce in a factory.
Makes sense.
And yeah, I didn't want people to have to do any thinking when they saw the dice. So I have this metric for success, which is that when you, after flipping or rolling, I want people to be able to finish counting up what everything is before the coins settle. And so the initial version did not pass it, but this is the 3rd iteration of the coins. And so it's this really dramatic moment where you get ready and then you throw them on the ground and they're all settling and everyone's kind of like racing to count them all. And because they're large and you can make out the features on them from far away, everyone on the table can sort of read it.
Right.
And so it kind of eliminates this awkward part of dice-based games where it's like kind of anticlimactic that it takes like 10 seconds to figure out if you've killed the dragon or if you've died.
Unless you're a theater
and you're
kid
the
like
only
me,
one who
in which
can
case
see.
you're bad at math and it takes you like 15 to 20 seconds.
Yeah. And or so a lot of times people accidentally roll the 12-sided die instead of the 20-sided die, and then you have to be like, oh, that doesn't count. And they're like, well, this is a good roll.
Yeah. But this is clean. It's easy to figure out, and you can just.
And you never have interference because
so you can't land on its side.
Yeah.
That's fair. Caroline, talk to me about the art, because the characters you designed, it's otherworldly for a game that you get. I mean, and highest of compliments with that. For a game that has like some kind of dark elements. I mean, obviously you can still dine it, right? It's not just for kids, but also, I mean, it's got this Adventure Time meets Edward Gorey kind of style to it that I absolutely love.
I like that. Yeah.
Where did because I know you guys worked closely on putting that together. Where did the inspiration for the style and the creature designs sort of come from?
Let me grab a couple things from the wall here. So I can sort of show some reference points that we looked at through the development. So the original illustrations I did were these vector illustrations during that I did during an all-nighter when I was interning in China. And but I ended up doing some sort of pen drawings that I sent to Caroline to reference, and they're not really representative at all of where we ended up eventually, because they're basically only anatomically correct in terms of the current design. And then based on that, Caroline sent back some rough drawings, and I think the ones you sent were like pretty spot on. There were a couple of them that required more iteration than others. I think the crustaceanoid.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like, I think we did go through a bunch of iterations for like crustaceanoid and geoid. Some of the, and like I think arboid as well. Like some of the some of the characters that aren't humanoid that are like based in animals. And other like, wacky weird stuff. I was really drawn to just being able to kind of like riff off of those, and just because there are like so many different types of like crustaceans and crabs, I like had like so much material to work with. It was like such a blast. But but I think it was really like these are really fun to see. because it kind of shows like how far we've come in the iteration process. Like it has been a really, really close partnership as far as the design and the art direction go, like and extremely like collaborative. And so it's like really fun that the first things I saw were these vector drawings that Ryan had sent me that are really just like flat color busts of like a shrimp. And I was like, this is interesting. I can work with this.
And it's interesting too because like the back and forth yielded a lot of interesting ideas. For example, the single cellular organism one, that was kind of the most different from Dungeons and Dragons. Like it's pretty similar to the gelatinous cube monster,
but as a playable character.
Yeah. A lot of people choose nucleoid.
Interesting.
Yeah. Nucleoid fungus lord is a very popular combination. And originally it was called Phasmoid because I was naming it off of the mouth. And that was like the iconic feature of this.
Right.
And then one time Caroline sent me a file that said nucleoid.png. And I was like, oh, nucleoid. I don't like nucleoid, but nucleoid, it communicates a lot more than phasmoid.
Yeah.
Phasmoid sounds like maybe you're energy creature or something. Or anything that has a mouth, which isn't really helpful. And so, there's a lot of back and forth like that. And then one of these actually, Wingoid. Wingoid, actually, we only made this year. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which this year maybe doesn't sound like super recent, but in the scale of a 10-year project, it's pretty recent. Because there used to be a squid creature.
Okay.
Well, squid still exists, but it's not going to be a part of the standard launch edition.
Oh, great.
And so we recently added Wingoid. And then I just want to show some of the other ones, the ability cards. You want to just like flip through these maybe?
Yeah.
So initially the idea for the ability card was that it would be an icon. And then I did a bunch of drawings of icons and they just felt kind of boring. And then so we started experimenting with, okay, well, what if it's multiple icons?
Right.
Or if we sort of make a little scene out of the icons.
Yeah.
And so, you can see this is sort of like before and after Necromancer. And what we ended up going with is that the concept of the ability card is that the hero was here, and they just left after doing something like really awesome,
right,
representative of what the ability is all about. And so this is the space that they're in, because what we didn't want is to have two things that look like a creature. Mm-hmm. So it's easy to say, okay, this bird at this location, that's my character.
Yeah.
So we want people to do the sort of like mental visual addition in their head.
So I wanted to ask about that because I thought that was something interesting. Is how do you go about designing the art for something that is primarily for other people's imagination, right? It's that balance between making sure you're showing what is possible, but not railroading them into being that being a wingoid means just being this particular board. Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a really hard balance to strike. I remember being really frustrated playing Dungeons and Dragons. My DM wouldn't show us any of the drawings because he's like, well, no, you have to imagine it in your head. Like, I have to protect imagination as this sacred thing that like cannot be tampered. Which I respect that because I actually had things in my head that were very different from other people, and I think that's wonderful. But at the same time, I think as people emotionally, we just want to see it. It's like a Christmas present opening moment for me.
It helps, yeah, for sure.
And so I think that we're going to just hope to show many different kinds. I think that on the box, we're still working on the box art actually, but we're planning on showing different iterations of the species for the box
separate from what you have here.
Yeah, and I think what is really fun about the characters in this game specifically, as opposed to like a D&D, is that because there's only one humanoid character, like one character with like 2 arms, 2 legs, and 2 eyes, you know?
Yeah.
I think that like form really, really informs function in this game. So like you're not stuck with, you know, using your ability as like a halfling or a giant or like, you know, whatever you are, you're using your ability with like this physical body that like you like say you're a geoid in this game. And you can detach parts of yourself, or like or like you're a squid in this game, and you can like use your ink, and like there's all this like. I think it's really really interesting how you can like interact with the game on like new levels,
right?
And like all of these challenges and constraints that come with the physicality of your characters, really. Yeah, they really inform like what you can riff off of. It's been
really interesting to watch players, because some players, they rely on the ability card. And I actually had a player who, interestingly, is a very experienced D&D player, who never actually even referenced the ability card once. All of their creative things were like, they said, oh, well, I'm a tree, so I use my sap to clog the door. And then they're like, well, since I have a lot of shade, I cool the area for my friends. And then, since I have pine cones, I use them as maracas to like, play a song. And so, what's interesting is that I have no memory in my time playing RPGs where I actually used my species as a creative input.
Right.
But it's been really interesting to see how people use that. And I think part of it has to do with the descriptions, because one thing that really bothered me about other things is that you'd read the race descriptions and it would say like, oh, like dwarfs hate elves hate dwarfs, and I'm like, really? Like, this is the one part of society that I don't want to be thinking about while I'm playing.
No, absolutely.
Or I don't want to model. So all of the descriptions for these are based on what makes them special and unique physically and culturally. So for example, geoid, the last version of the geoid description was kind of behavioral. It talked about like, oh, geoids have this kind of personality. Geoids like this. Geoids like that. Geoids dislike that. But I kind of want to subvert this idea that your physical characteristics are going to determine your personality.
Yeah, no.
And now it's much more focused on what do they do that's unique. So, for example, geoids invented a number of sports that involve digging, such as... Let me try that again. Geoids have invented a number of sports that involve digging, such as boulder boxing and stalagmite soccer. Scoring the most points is a solid way to earn the respect of a geoid. Or geoids are united by their innate love for digging. An adult geoid can dig just about as fast as other creatures can walk.
Okay.
And so that digging is something that now players know, I can dig, I can use that to solve a problem. I don't have to rely on rules to come up with that idea.
Interesting.
And so it sort of makes the ability card is in some ways for beginner players, and then the creature card is, I mean, they're both for every player, obviously, but different levels of experience, you sort of use these equally if you're comfortable improvising in that context.
Now, so with one of the species, or creatures, I guess is the term we're using here, being humanoids, it doesn't necessarily mean human, right? If I have a D&D mindset, I would want to be halfling, elf, dwarf. That technically that all is encompassed into humanoid. So there really is kind of a wide range, even with what some may consider to be like the boring option. Is it's not. Each one of these is just as boring or as interesting as your imagination can make it.
And the way that the humanoid is described is it says the humanoid's talent for magic sets them apart from other creatures. From the age of 6, they are capable of bending spoons, and by 16, most train at a magic school to earn their wizarding license. Ranging from 3 to 13 feet tall, the humanoid is a versatile creature. Shorter ones make great scouts, and the taller ones can be formidable warriors. They use their magic powers to grow or shrink to fit the occasion. So the idea is that the humanoid is this shape-shifting creature that can kind of like change their appearance to suit the occasion. So it's interesting. I was kind of thinking that no one would pick it, but it felt like important to be there as a reference point to reality.
Everything else, yeah.
And then so I've asked players during playtesting, why did you choose humanoid? And people have said like, well, it's familiar, and then they pick the ability card is like really wacky. And other people have said like, I like magic. Magic's really cool, so I picked it because it's the one that's best at magic.
Right.
And so it's been really interesting to play that. And then during playtesting once, I have like a black friend who picked it, and they're like, "Why?" Because I've never seen a black person in a role playing game before, and I'm just so happy to see someone
that goes
who
a
looks
long
like
way.
me, and so that was something.
That's really awesome.
Another reason people pick it.
So, where are we now? We got the prototype. We're gonna go ahead. We will do a playthrough on the channel, which I'm super excited about. But as far as you guys, what do you have left to do? What are the next steps? Like, it seems like you've got a lot done, but the journey's not quite over yet.
Yeah, no. So, right now, I'm still refining the storybook, which is something that the referee uses when they're running a game. We're also still working on the box art, so Caroline has provided me with some illustrations that I'm testing right now and showing them to people and saying, like, oh, what do you think is this game going to be based on this art? Yeah. And then from there, we're also planning about what the strategy is going to be for content after launch. Right now, I'm thinking of doing sort of location-based expansions. Okay. So, like, there would be an island one that's got, like, you know, a coconut creature or a magma creature, and then maybe, like, a futuristic one that has a robot that you can play, and, you know...
It's kind of like full-on adventure packs.
Yeah. So, a combination of creatures, abilities, and also stories. And then the other thing that I'm still working on is that I really want... My goal is that Fliptales is the best game to practice and learn how to be a game designer with. Mm-hmm. So right now I'm working on different ways to help people write their own content. And I'm still deciding, is you making your own stories kind of 20% of the experience, kind of similar to how most role-playing games are, or is that like the whole point of the game? It's like learn how to be a game designer. Like, what does the Facebook ad say? Does the Facebook ad say fun game to play with your friends, or does the Facebook ad say want to be a game designer? Question mark.
Yeah.
So I think these are two very different strategies in terms of go to market.
One could argue that they appeal to two, maybe not very different audiences, but different audiences, right? I think the people who are really interested in game design, there's a Venn diagram that there's an overlap there, but it's not necessarily all the same people. Yeah. So but I mean, there's no reason you can't accomplish both either. That sounds like super exciting. I think this looks like a lot of fun. Now, this is something. This isn't a full-time job like Illustrator. This isn't a full-time job for both you guys. This is still stuff you're trying to get in on the side while doing your day thing and making rent and all that. There. Yeah. Has it been hard to balance? Has it been difficult trying to find that like work-life balance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been really interesting. It's taught me patience, for sure, in a really good way. Because, you know, sometimes I'll send stuff to Caroline, and then I'll get it back after a while, and I'm like just so grateful for all the work you've done. It's like it's really hard to describe. It's like if you take the feeling of like 10 years of Christmases, and like that's how the level of like joy that these illustrations have brought me.
I mean, once again, they're absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
They're easy to fall in love with.
And so it's been a really interesting learning experience, because sometimes I see them and immediately I'm kind of like, there are things I want to say, maybe they don't match what I had in my mind, but then I'm patient with it, and I look back to what I sent Caroline in terms of the brief, and I think to myself, oh, you know what, this matches. This is what I asked for exactly. Yeah. And so it's helped me become a lot more succinct in the feedback I do give. At work, you know, I'm paying people, and so like there's this very like clear thing of like, you make work, I give you feedback, you have to do it. But in this experience, none of us have to do any of it. So it's really helped me become a better collaborator. In terms of work-life balance, working on this never feels like work to me.
That's good.
Because I've preserved it as, in my mind, the project is design the game I wish I had. And because it is a very personal thing, it never feels like work.
That's awesome.
And so I think that sometimes as designers, we're made to think that you should design something that's for everyone, and designing something just for you is naive. But I think that a lot of times when you design something just for yourself, you can go deeper into it, and for myself can develop meaning over time.
That's great.
Yeah.
How about you? Yeah.
Yeah, I think over the course of this whole project, I've definitely, I would agree, completely learned how to be a better collaborator in what I am asked to do, and also in like the way that I iterate and riff, and like the agency I give to like my illustrations. I think where I started off, like coming out of school, and where I am now as far as like how much I am willing to like and want to play with like scenes and characters and like the imagery and the style and the line weight, like I'm so much more like open and like excited to really play and like give each illustration sort of its own like life. So and I think learning to be a better, Ryan's our art director, but like learning to be a better co-art director and like a better communicator, and just like it's just been a really cool, great experience, like a kind of education in and of itself. And I'm really like super thankful for it, and I'm super excited to see it all done and like playable. It's gonna be such a blast.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, because I did a little bit of research here, you had just come off of another project, Lissa, is that right?
Yeah, I just published a graphic novel. I was a co-illustrator on it with, and there were two authors actually, both doctors of anthropology, and it's this really wonderful kind of genre-bending graphic novel about revolution and in Egypt in 2011, and medical issues in those systems there. It's just like it's about friendship and family, and like and dealing with illness, and it's a really cool book. So that was another really cool project to be able to work with a small team on.
Right.
But yeah, I'm a freelance illustrator. So I'm always like looking for really rad stuff to do with like good teams of people.
That's right. How did that collaborative experience in this one? Like, how are those the same? How are they different?
Yeah.
Did it help kind of going from that environment into something that on first glance isn't necessarily the same thing, but it sounds like the general environment of what you were doing, working with other people and bouncing ideas, was somewhat similar there.
Yeah, this has been sort of, this has been like a one-to-one, where Lissa was, I think, really a team of 5 people that were all kind of contributing and competing and in ideas and like desires for the project. So I think my ability to like really communicate was well informed in that project. And it's definitely helped me go into the future with this book. I think Ryan has definitely noticed probably a difference in just the way that things get done. So that was a really good project. I would recommend reading it because it's a cool graphic novel if you're into comics.
Awesome. Well, we'll put a link in that in the comments below. So that's great. So we've talked a little bit about this. What's the feedback been so far, both from like the peers that you've been able to like share this with, but have you gotten this in the hands of anyone in the industry yet and gotten opinions that way as well?
The industry, no. With the exception, actually, I went to Indiecade last year, and I didn't really register for anything because I couldn't afford it.
Yeah, because those prices
so I just
are high.
brought my game and like would show it to people in the ticket lane, and I'd be like, "Hey, my name's Ryan. You want to check out my game?" And they're like, "All right, what you got?" So like show it to people.
Line's 2 hours long, sure.
Yeah. The feedback I consistently get every time is that everyone says they love the art.
Not shocking.
Great job. And then I haven't gotten really feedback from experts on the game design or game mechanics, but I did get a lot of really helpful advice from Naomi Clark, who just designed Consenticle.
Oh.
She gave me a lot of pointers about like how to run a Kickstarter for a game. I had one interaction with the industry where Monty Cook did an AMA on Reddit, and I asked him a question. He very kindly responded about, I said, does a Kickstarter actually bring new people to your campaign? And he very helpfully said, no. You should know.
Interesting.
You should know who your audience already is. Actually,
it's a good lesson.
Monty Cook, or I think his team actually put together a book on how to kickstart your game. Maybe I'm remembering this incorrectly, but I'm pretty sure I bought an ebook from him that was how to do a Kickstarter campaign for you, because so many people ask him.
Yeah, I'm sure
how to run it. But yeah, my approach has intrinsically been purposefully been from the bottom up, because I think that part of the issue with existing games is that they come from too much of a business perspective of oh, well, we're going to make a book because people who buy RPGs, they like to collect things. And books are collectible, but 16-page floppy instruction booklets are not collectible. And so, due to that, we make these huge texts that no one wants to read, and then fewer people get to play these games. And so I make sure that my main source of feedback is from people playing the game. And yeah, it's been interesting, the feedback I've gotten. I feel like the most helpful feedback is sometimes people just talking about it. And they don't think that they're saying anything, but one of the things that's been really interesting to me is to hear how people label the game. And I've had people who play the game and later and they say, oh, Ryan designs board games. Or oh, Ryan designed this party game. And the thought that someone would describe this after playing it as a party game.
And not like an RPG.
Because they don't know what that means.
Right.
And so actually on the website what it says is a party game for creative people. Because the mental image you picture when you say that, people actually know what they're getting into.
Right.
But yeah, the main feedback I got until very recently was it's still too complicated, or I don't know what to do. And then only after 9.5 years of redesigning the game, earlier in this year, I had people play it and without any intervention, and they got it. They had a lot of fun, and what was also really satisfying about that is I watched them go through the instruction booklet, and it took them about 10 minutes to play for the first time. Oh wow! None of them had played D&D before.
That's great.
So that was
just jump right on into it and get going.
Yeah. So that was awesome. And then the most recent piece of feedback I got was shout out Ruth. She gave really great feedback. Ruth, a playtester, told me that she felt like there should be a way to reference the instructions during the game. Because the storybook and the instruction book used to be combined into one. Because I thought it was really important to have a simple, just
too many
one
pieces.
book. Yeah, not too many pieces. But she said that she felt that by it being in the book, it felt like it was going to be a lot of labor to flip to other pages in the book to find it and then have to flip back. And so because it felt like work to find it, they just didn't reference it. But then there were a couple of times when they did reference the rules halfway through the game, and it was very helpful to them. So I actually pulled out the instruction booklet to be a separate booklet, knowing that it would add cost to the game. It's going to be a less accessible price point because it adds cost.
Right.
But by having it be separate now, people are... I've gotten feedback where people say oh, I would read the whole instruction booklet cover to cover because there's such little content in it. Mm-hmm. It's really 8 sentences for the core game instruction. Some of them are run-on sentences, but 12 punctuation marks. That's some of the feedback I've got.
That's awesome. Do you guys both have a combination creature ability that you play that most interests you?
Yeah.
Not just pick your favorite child or anything, but
I definitely do have a favorite. It's really easy. It's actually the ones we have here. Wingoid Necromancer. I love Wingoid because he just to me, he looks like a he, but he just looks like he knows how to have fun in a way that other characters maybe It's not like they don't look like they know how to have fun, but he's just like,
He's
I've
violent.
gamed the
He's
system.
happy to be there. I didn't notice a little gem in his mouth.
Yeah.
He's a sneaky guy.
And then I love Necromancer because, well, one thing I like is the lore involved in it. This one has a little bit more lore than others. It says, after faking their own death, the Necromancer is invited to an exclusive school of magicians, the Black Talon. Their art, controlling the dead. But not all of these wizards are drawn to evil. Some use their powers for good, seeking their union with their undead as a sacred connection to fallen friends. And then Caroline actually incorporated all of that into the illustration.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Which I was really impressed by.
It's jam-packed.
Yeah, it's jam-packed with info.
Yeah.
And I really love it because Animate Dead is the middle ability, which is basically control zombies.
It's great.
And it's just really easy to come up with fun ways to use zombies. So like when I'm playing a game, I'm one of those annoying characters where I'm like, I make a barbershop run by zombies to make money so that I can just buy out the game instead of assassinating them or something.
It's your game. You're allowed to game the system. I think that's fine.
Yeah, those are my favorite.
Yeah, I really like let me find Arboid. I really like Arboid for me because I'm a little shy, as you guys can tell. But I like to cancel Arboid out with the entertainer card and write some songs. Share the joy. He's in there somewhere. But yeah, I think a bard Arboid is a nice
that's great.
dichotomy to play.
And I think the Arboroid description, it says something about their musical pine cones.
Yeah. Maracas.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't find it. Oh yeah, they also beating on their hollow bellies to produce fresh beats.
Exactly. See?
I'm curious to know what you would play.
I mean, I've been trying to eye through these a lot. It's hard because they all seem pretty great. I know ability-wise, I would jump into adventure, and oftentimes because anytime in like when I've played WoW or anything else, like I always want to take the tinkering class just because having tiny little robots do stuff for me always seems awesome.
Yes.
Robo Buddies level 2 is definitely going to strike your fancy.
Exactly. Just little tiny like robot woodland creatures are going to have doing my shit for me. It's fantastic. And then as far as like there's so many, and I think right off the bat, I just for the pose alone, it's between crustaceanoid and the geoid, and then both of them just have this. You put them in this like regal pose, both of them. They just look like the dandiest of characters. So immediately I'm drawn to them. But I mean, I'm also the kind of guy who I DM strictly because I can't stick with a character for too long.
Yeah.
So every session I play, I'm coming with a new character sheet from level 1 and it pisses everybody else off.
Yeah.
So like this is the kind of game that works perfectly for me. I was like, I'm just gonna. Which one have I not done yet? Let me grab those two and get going. So there's you give a lot to choose from here, which is pretty great. What's the next steps after all this is done? It's successful. Is it something you'd want to sell off to a larger publisher? Continue making other games? Continue focusing on this one? Like, what's kind of the dream that comes from this?
I try not to plan too far ahead because I think that longer than 2 years is just like not reality. But I don't think I'll ever sell it to anyone because I wouldn't want them to change any of the core ideas about it. Because this is, like I said before, it's a game that I want.
Right.
So it's really important to me. Making money is not as important to me for this game as making people happy. Like if 100 people buy this game and they play it and they like it, I'm happy.
Awesome.
Like it will have been 10 years well spent. But I think that what I would love, like stretch goals, is basically to have money to pay people to make art for this game. And so I would love to use it as a platform to make the RPG industry more diverse I would love to highlight voices that have historically not been highlighted as much as I can. I really want to hire comedians to write RPGs because I think that I also separately, this is totally a tangent, but I think it's really interesting that people who make RPGs often call themselves writers.
Huh.
Because I don't see it as writing at all. I see it as designing. To me, I see writing as telling a story, but RPGs are about what players do. So,
right. So it's more about the sandboxing of something than the
So yeah, my ambitions would be that people, I'm able to basically give people money to make art. And yeah, I mean, it would be really cool if maybe I would actually, I'd sell rights to Nickelodeon if they want to do a series with the characters.
Get it animated.
Yeah,
I'm interested.
That would be pretty amazing. Nickelodeon.
I think it would fit right in, to be perfectly honest. Absolutely, for sure. So, as I mentioned, did some research. I'll let you choose which one you want to talk about first, Ryan. The accordion or the patent you own?
Okay. Accordion.
So you know how to play? Is that right?
Yeah. When I was in high school, I watched Amelie like 8 times. Actually, I'm gonna get her autograph. I have her autograph.
Oh my god.
Wow. No way.
Yeah. Thanks, Audrey Tateau, for
That's awesome.
for sending me an autograph back. It took her 2 years, but she delivered.
That's
Oh,
cool.
wow.
And yeah, I was so inspired by this movie that I told my mom I wanted to learn how to play the accordion. She was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "I'm so sure. I've never been sure of anything more in my life than that I want to play the accordion." She's like, "Okay, I'll buy you like a crappy one at a garage sale for like $50." And I played it like every day for a year. And she was like, "Okay, we'll get you like a real accordion," which is funny because the accordion I have is actually a woman's accordion.
Oh.
Which is like slightly smaller than a man's accordion.
Okay.
Which is like the dumbest manifestation of the patriarchy. Because it's also the only one I can lift. Like the men's one is just egregiously long. It's like just a sideways piano at that point. But yeah, so I felt like in order to write her a powerful autograph request, I should first learn how to play the accordion. And so in my letter to her, I said, like, "Oh, you inspired me to learn how to play the accordion. Your movie's great. I love everything you do."
Amazing.
Yeah, it felt like there was a little bit of fate because when I went to the post office, I asked for an international reply postage.
Yeah.
And they had one left in the entire post office.
Oh, wow.
So like it really felt like fate. And then I actually got this back the last day before we moved out of that house. So if it had come one day later, I never would have gotten the autograph.
Wow.
So it's like
Beautiful.
That's
Yeah.
great.
that's why
I had to bring it up mainly because right after high school, I also got an accordion and attempted to teach myself to play. Except I only ever learned how to play Hot Cross Buns, My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean, and for some god-awful reason, Where's the Love of Black Eyed Peas? and like it was those 3 songs over and over again, absolutely annoying my community college roommate Eli, who's been on the channel a couple times in the process, and like had a couple like teacher-owned books and never went further than that.
It's funny that you bring it up actually because the accordion is like a really important thing to my personal history because I was like a really shy kid in high school for the first 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was dating this girl who was like also shy, and we kind of like fed off each other's shy energy, and I was just like very emo. And then I learned how to play the accordion, and then I don't know why. I think it's because I was interested, like I said earlier, interested in human behavior. I decided I should bring my accordion to school, and in between classes, play it in the hallway. And then I got scouted by the drama teacher for the play because he was like, "Oh, you play accordion? That's going to be great for the play we're coming up with next."
Oh boy!
Shout out Scott Austin. And then through the process of doing the play, I totally came out of my shell, and that's when I learned. I think through a combination of doing the play and D&D that I like loved performance.
Right.
And then so that kind of like sprung me into my extroverted, productive junior and senior years of high school.
Nice. Can we also talk about how I also have an accordion?
Wait, what?
I didn't know that.
This is nuts.
It's a woman's accordion, and it's blue, and it has tiny, tiny keys, but it's big. And the only thing I can play on it is the Song of Storms from Ocarina of Time.
Oh my god.
That's the only thing you need to be able to play on.
That was what I was trying to build up to.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't even play that.
This is the fated moment.
This is, oh god, I got rid of mine, but if I dig through all my mom's stuff, I'm sure I'll find
Brooklyn
it.
Trio.
We'll bring it in.
Let's
We'll bring
start
it
an
in.
accordion trio.
Polka's coming back. Actually, I really wanted to start a ska band with an accordion. I just never was able to get it off the ground. So I didn't know anyone to play the horns.
Yeah.
But this is the chance. It's time to bring it back. Now onto something very similar. You own a patent? Co-own?
Oh, co-patent.
Go ahead.
My dad is a material scientist, and in high school, I worked in his lab. And so, yeah, I had the opportunity to work on research that led to a patent.
That's really cool.
So I actually mostly just did the grunt work.
Right.
Amir,
Your name's on the list and you're tangentially related into it, but I mean,
Yeah.
your name's on it. That's like pretty
I
cool.
was considering going down a path of materials science, but I just felt at the end of a week being in the lab, I just felt like I was going to get cancer from like all the fumes.
Yeah.
And just being cooped up inside of a lab all day, every day, wasn't for me. I wanted my body to be more engaged. So now I sit in front of a computer all day.
There you go. And Carolyn, what else are you working on right now? So you've done this. You had the comic. I know through your site and stuff, you have some other like short comics and art pieces you've done up there. Has that kind of been your focus primarily in comic and now doing a little bit of game design stuff, or are you trying to look at a little bit of everything?
So I've kind of had like a sci-fi sequential narrative like path so far. I worked at Autodesk a couple years ago and wrote a sci-fi anthology there and did comics and like developed like a VR short film for them.
Oh wow!
Which was super rad. And then I did Lissa, which was a long another long form project with a big team. That was kind of like an unconventional comic thing. And then this is like unconventional RPG, and this has been like a really, really cool thing to work on. But I'm like currently I'm currently freelancing around New York City and doing editorial work. I'm also doing like storyboarding work, and I'm learning to animate better than I already do. So I'm like really excited to kind of start working on a more film side of things. Like
Right.
I've worked in tech and I've worked in like publishing and I've done some game design, and I really like having all this stuff under my belt. It feels like it's like working up to something that's going to be really holistic in like a practice.
That's great.
But I love movies and I love animation. So yeah, hopefully kind of redirecting to that.
So you're gonna turn this into a Nickelodeon pilot?
You
Is
know
that
what?
the plan?
I'm cool
I'm
with
ready.
that.
Now
very
that
cool
we're
with
talking
that.
about this.
Yes. Very interested.
I got some friends who do anime voice acting out in LA.
Perfect.
Make this happen.
Yes. Pitch it. Yeah.
That sounds really cool and a lot of fun. So we're gonna close things out, but before I do, both you guys, we've talked a lot about just being into games, both on and off camera here. Favorite tabletop, favorite video game.
Ooh.
That may not be the favorite because that's always hard to choose, but like, you know, which one pops out to you now?
Favorite video game? It's definitely Legend of Zelda Wind Waker.
Thank you for saying that so that I don't have to say it for my answer.
Because it's just one of
This is
those-
why we work so
Yeah.
well together, is because we have like a very in sync taste for video games.
No,
and stuff.
that's great. I thought, especially, I mean, obviously they re-released it, but I thought it was underappreciated when it first
It
came out.
was,
It's beautiful.
And it holds up well. They didn't need to re-release
Yeah.
it. And I'm glad they did. But like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
It's a game where you go back to and you play it, and it's like, oh, this could have easily. If you put that on a Switch,
Yeah.
it would have made
Like,
Oh, yeah.
total.
great.
Well, they will. Oh, I'm sure
Oh,
they will.
yeah.
I would say my favorite video game, since you already said Wind Waker, is Animal Crossing.
Ah, yeah.
Just because it totally made me question, like, what is a game? And what are the feelings that you can experience in a game? And a game that focused on friendship and just like mellow vibes. So great, because I love playing a lot of other video games, but I'm just very bad at them. And my brother would beat me at everything. And so I loved Animal Crossing because my brother can't beat me at it because there's no winning.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I think my favorite game right now, other than Fliptales, obviously, because Fliptales is my favorite game, but I really like Secret Hitler and other hidden role games.
Yeah.
I just think it's so beautiful how the game complexity scaffolds to player skill. So if you're a bunch of 6-year-olds playing this game, you're going to have a great time. And if you're actors, like professional actors who are like really good at tricking each other, you're going to have like a super complex, extra hard
deep.
level. Yeah. And it's interesting too because like our friend Baron is really good at Secret Hitler. And you see a side of him that like you've never seen before.
The darkness comes out.
Yeah. I think it really brings out interesting sides of people. And it's such a lightweight mechanic.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, go in a circle and like answer this one question or something like that.
That's awesome. Anything before we close out that you want that we haven't gotten to talk about yet that you guys want to mention about the game, about this experience so far, or closing remarks, so to speak?
Closing remarks. It's hard.
I mean, it's fun to it's fun to just sit down and talk about it because it's such a I only just moved to New York, so I've kind of
From where?
From Denver, Colorado.
Oh, okay. Most people go the other direction.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, so it's been like a long distance game this whole time, and it's just nice to like be able to sit down and like go through what we love about it and get to tell people like why it's like been so important to us over the last couple of years. So
That's great.
yeah.
I guess my words, like advice to other game designers. I feel silly saying that because it's not like I'm a game designer or whatever. Like no one
Designed a game.
But my sort of like advice would be to like trust what your playtesters say and incorporate their feedback. I mean, you don't have to incorporate their suggestions, but if you make something and you give it to your players and you improve it based on their feedback and you do that many times, you will have a great game. And I think that sometimes it can be scary till you're like, oh, like, do I listen to this? Like, that sounds kind of crazy. Like, are they just dumb? But I think that you can really trust yourself and trust the process. That if you come up with a game and people have fun, like, you've made a good game. And it doesn't matter how beautiful the art is, or it doesn't matter if you know how to use InDesign or if you're just doing it in Microsoft Word.
Right.
As long as you make something and people have fun, like, you've done a good job. And then the other thing I would say is just that there's like no greater gift than making something just for yourself that you love. And I think it's really challenging to justify that time spent, because I think there's a lot of pressure to make things that make the world a better place and are going to like solve these huge problems that our world, because we have a lot of problems to solve here.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes making stuff just to make people happy, like, it's not an either or thing. They both make the world a better place. And sometimes people need that
Right.
in order to engage seriously with these wicked problems.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I know as of this filming, I don't think you guys have a website yet. The Kickstarter's not live. We'll go ahead and put that in our comments below, and I'll splash across the bottom of the screen so people can see that. But where can they find you if they want to learn more about the game, or just kind of reach out to you guys and about your work?
Yeah. There's definitely gonna be a Twitter.
Great.
So I think Twitter's gonna be our main platform, and then there's gonna be a contact us part of the thing. But yeah, I'm super interested in changing how game publishers traditionally interact with people, and so I'm super keen to hear back from anyone who's interested in getting involved either as a writer or artist or play tester or any. I think I'm very open to partnerships, taking different sides. Probably Twitter's the best way to get in touch.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I was going to ask, what is your handle, if you don't mind, if anyone wants to reach out to you?
Oh yeah, if you want to reach out to me directly, I'm Flommerboy. FLOMERBOY, which is my granddad's email address. Sorry, I need to explain a little bit. It's usually autocorrect. It's like, did you mean to say flower boy? I'm like, no! It's funny because I'm wearing flowers. But yeah, my mom's side of the family, last name is Flommerfelt. And so I got an email from my granddad once. It was flommerboy@AOL.com. And I was like,
AOL.
That is so cute. I need to claim that because he's not on Twitter.
Yeah, you can tweet me at BrewDraws. Brew is my last name, Brewer. And I have a website, caroline.website.
Awesome.
Very simple.
Great.
Yes.
No, that's easy.
I also have a blog, ryancan.build.
Way to bury the lead. All right.
/blog. And I write about game design. In my day job, I'm more interested about learning and learning through play. So I write a lot about different models for education. And my most recent blog post is whether or not you can date a robot.
I was gonna ask, can I? But I'm assuming I should read the blog and find out.
I argue that you can.
Okay.
I think it's valid. But
yeah, it's a yes and or no but kind of scenario.
yeah.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching. Please be on the lookout. We're actually going to go ahead and play this game. That video will probably be up after this one, the next Tabletop Tuesday after you're watching this here. But in the meantime, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out Team Fun on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever else I'm putting everything up these days. And until then, we can't wait to see you all next time. Thank you so much for watching. And we're gonna cut it, guys.
We sign off with the pose from
with a pose
from the instruction manual. This is the referee in How Do You Lose?
Love it. All right, guys. Boom.